Hello everyone, my name is Lindsay, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create your own Interpolation Grid Master Controller. The Interpolation Grid Master Controller is a very helpful tool that will allow you to quickly control certain aspects of your animation process with a quick manipulation of a single 2D point master controller. We will be using the Interpolation Grid Master Controller to quickly set up and control the orientation of this basketball, giving it the look and feel of a 3D object. This tool can be used for multiple instances, like head and body rotations, facial expressions, and even mouse shape positions. The first step in creating your Grid Master Controller is really just visualizing your grid. So you can pull one in here from the node library, and you can see that what I'm going to be doing is aligning my grid points up with these numbers. So now that I have a feel for what the shape of my grid will be, what I'll need next is the key poses on the peg that I wish to control with my master controller. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test those key poses. So I'm going to create a space in between all of them using Command and the plus sign. And then I'm going to create in-betweens, and I'm just going to double check that I'm happy with how they look. There's nothing jumping around. And if I undo, this will bring me back to where I started. And now's a really good time to double check which composite bar you're going to be adding your master controller to. And since I already know that I'm going to be attaching mine to the basketball master composite, I can hit my Grid Wizard button, and I'm going to get my Grid Wizard pop-up.
And here I can create the 12 grid points that represent the 12 keyframes that we've already created to complete this grid. I'll take a 4x3 and leave the rest of the parameters the same.
And now it's as easy as clicking on each grid point and assigning the frame that's attached to it. So frame 1 will be the first, frame 2 will be the second, 3 the third, and I'll keep going like this until I reach the end. And just for something to consider, you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to a grid shape of a square or a rectangle, but we do think it would be the easiest to keep track of, and we will recommend it. From here, what we're going to actually do is change the shape of our grid so that it actually reflects the shape of the basketball. Since the basketball is round, what we're going to do is we're going to create a little bit more of a symmetry. If I leave the grid the way that it is, we're going to have a huge space for our flip to take place, which means that's going to be a lot of interpolation area where we want to limit this for the animator. We don't want to use this part. So if we turn this into a sliver by changing it to, instead of -1, we go to -0.1. And then what we'll do for the flip side is we'll do the same, but we'll just keep it on the positive. So 0.1. And now we've limited our flip zone. And then from here, what we can do is bring our grid into more of a symmetrical shape. So we can just cut down from a -3 to a -2, and then from a 3 to a 2 on the flip side. And this is going to make a really big difference between how the ball is interpolated between its X and Y values. And finally, we can give our master controller a name, and since this is the orientation of the basketball, I'm going to stick with orientation. And when I hit create, it's going to give me a drop-down menu which offers me every composite bar that's attached to this build so that I can select where I want to attach my master controller to. And since this is a small build, I'm going to attach it to the basketball master composite, which I did take note of earlier. Save my script. And before I close this window, I'm just going to double check that I'm happy with my master controller. And using the master controller view, I can refresh to see the master controllers in my scene, and I can use the magnifying glass to locate it if I've lost it or attached it to the wrong composite. I can show my controls. And if I scroll down to a free keyframe and test my master controller, you'll see now that using my master controller, I can set keys. You'll want to set back-to-back keyframes so that you avoid the flipped positions. Just like this. Now that I'm happy with my master controller, the one thing that I'm going to do, because I can anticipate moving this ball and having the controller stay in place, but since I don't want that, I actually want the controller to move with the ball. I'm just going to quickly attach it to the basketball's peg. Now, when the ball moves, the master controller will follow it, keeping the same orientation that we set up during our grid process. And lastly, if we're happy with our grid, we can actually choose to save this as a preset. I'm going to click the Save button. It's going to ask me to create my grid preset, and I'll just save this as 4x3 flip. And instead of hitting create, because we don't want to go through this process again, we're going to close the window manually. And that's how you create your very own Interpolation Grid Master Controller. Please join me in my next video where we tackle a 360 rig.